So I wanted to come on here and talk about the Mimic. As we know, the game Secrets of the Mimic is coming in 2025, quite a long wait. So is Dead by Daylight, X Five Nights at Freddy's. Is 2025 gonna be like 2023, where we're like eating good as FNAF fans? This future's gonna be exciting. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this book that I know about regarding the Mimic and how it might come into play here with the game. And I have a video here by Rytos that can kind of give you some context as to what book I'm talking about, which is titled The Mimic, which is kind of convenient.
But ultimately, assuming all of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are in continuity is completely valid. It's just something I'm not personally going to do. That being said, I'm going to add details of the Mimic to the lore board that may or may not only be details from the book, but it's still worth writing down. Just like how in the Silver Eyes, I mention all the stuff about Charlie, even though that might not be true for the games. So, long story short, let's talk Mimic. We'll start with the story that's earliest in the timeline of this character, titled The Mimic. It follows Edwin Murray, a man living with his son David in an abandoned warehouse where he's contracted by Fazbear to turn costumes into animatronics. This is like a long time ago. While he's doing this, he finds his son David very annoying and disruptive, mainly because David's a kid and he's bad at liking his child. So instead of being a parent, Edwin builds The Mimic. He essentially takes some hodgepodge pieces from a few things to build the upper half of an endoskeleton, and I'll describe it here. He then creates a program that will take in any information it sees and recreate it and mix it up a little bit. Essentially, it's built to mimic. That's why he calls it the Mimic 1 program and eventually calls the creature the Mimic. The idea is that he's trying to make a playmate for his son that can learn things on the fly. And it does. It becomes incredibly close to his son and they hang out all the time. The Mimic acts like David and begins to copy his movements, and they get into a bunch of trouble together. But eventually, because Edwin's a bad father, David dies. Essentially, David runs out of the unlocked warehouse that they live in into traffic and gets hit by a car. And as if that wasn't bad enough, in his state of grief and still processing what happens, he eventually sees the Mimic pretending to act like David, holding David's favorite plushie and doing the things they used to do. In a fit of grief and rage, Edwin just starts mercilessly beating the machine into just a crumpled mess. Cut to some time later, and Edwin has gone MIA. After not responding to their messages, Fazbear eventually sends a team to reclaim any projects he was working on so they can give it to another engineer. But when the team gets there, they find out they're not the first team that Fazbear sent. And in fact, the first team that Fazbear sent found the Mimic and repaired it, giving it legs, something that Edwin never did. Once it was able to walk around, the Mimic began brutally killing everyone as if
multiple Fazbear teams are sent to retrieve projects that Edwin was working on. The first one repaired and gave legs to the Mimic. The Mimic killed them and more. Okay.
it were doing chores. For instance, it would kill someone and hang them on a hanger, or break somebody's body as he shoves it into a fridge to put away food, stuff like that. However, with this new team, the Mimic just kills them in incredibly brutal ways and the story ends. So, what does this story have to do with Security Breach and FNAF in general? Well, it has to do with Ruin, because it's the Mimic. Now, is it the same Mimic? That's the big question. Because the endoskeleton that gets described in this story does not look at all like the endoskeleton we see at the end of Ruin. The endoskeleton in this story is covered by a mass of wires that loop throughout the back of its head, out its eyes, down its neck, and there's a whole bunch of other specifics that we don't see in Ruin. That being said, the Mimic is able to repair itself with nearby robotic parts. Yes. So it's possible that if it is the same Mimic, then between when it was created and now, its appearance has drastically changed over repairing itself over and over again. But not only is the Mimic important for this story, but so is the Mimic 1 program used to create it. Because many people believe the Mimic 1 program is the thing that gets inputted into Help Wanted to create Glitchtrap. Glitchtrap essentially being a manifestation of this program. And we see this idea double down in The Storyteller, Tiger Rock, and The Monty Within, so let's talk about those stories.
Okay. So, what I'm trying to say here is that I think after the Secrets of the Mimic game, the mimic maybe somehow escapes, probably, losing its outer shell. Because in the trailer, it seems to have its outer shell. Or, yeah, something. So, it escapes somehow, and it finds Edwin. So, keep in mind, we have a date that says that the game takes place in 1979, so I'm thinking that this is where the book is taking place. I haven't read the book myself, but I don't think it says the date anyway, so I'm thinking that they're on the same timeline, assuming that the book is canon, but I think there's a little bit of something there involving that story. What am I saying? Yeah, I think that's it, so leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.